please take the roll.
Thomas Belter,
Here.
Jack Birmingham,
Here.
Steve Hintz, Jason Lasky,
Here.
Lori Palmieri,
Here.
Sue Panic, Archie Stam.
Here.
All right, first off, we have consent for approval of minutes, May 20th, 2020.
I move approval.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes from May 20th? All right, please take the roll, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have new business, a public hearing regarding Pioneer Drive land disposition. Did we receive any kind of email comments in advance of the meeting for that? And do we have anyone that would like to speak on Pioneer Drive land disposition?
I'm here as a representative of the buyers. I'm sorry.
That's
And-
about the only way we can pick
Yeah,
up your voice.
and if you could just please state your name and address, please.
Very formal.
James Condor, 2873 Danby Road, Oshkosh, on behalf of the Brooklyn Association of Condominium Owners. We've been kind of landlocked for years at our location. We've been fudging into the railroad right-of-way and the Pioneer right-of-way forever. Once that gets shut off, we're gonna probably be 10 to 15 spots short. And we'll be using every available public spot that we can find close to that building. That's not our wish, and so we're you know, asking to buy that. We've been asking for years to keep us in mind. You know, so far it worked, but we knew when that neighborhood changed that, you know, we were gonna have trouble.
So this is regarding public hearing to authorize land disposition, portion of property along Pioneer Drive at easterly termini of East 7th Avenue to Brooklyn Associates LLC for $3 a square foot based on CSM to be created with an estimated square footage of 13,500 for an amount of $40,500 estimated. And I'm sorry, once again, what was your name, sir?
James Condor.
James Condor. Commenting, did we have any other folks that wish to speak on this item?
Did you calculate, I mean, the number of spaces, people,
Yes, we
spots?
did.
How'd
We
you
went
figure
through-
that, Matt?
Jim Larson went through
Yeah,
that.
sure.
We were gaining, you know, I don't know if I have the exact figure, but like 35 to 40 spaces, I believe.
Okay.
Replacing ones and adding on, so we'll have ample parking at that point. Our future plan is to replace our back entrance and make it, our building is beautiful if anybody's been inside.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a lovely building inside, wonderful Oshkosh memorabilia and so forth. The outside's in nice shape. We just replaced a lot of windows. Our back entrance is, you know, not up to snuff, but once we do this and get our parking squared away, we'd like to, you know, be good neighbors and put a nice new entrance on the back, you know, which is kind of the front of that building. And so anyway, but we're just landlocked, got nowhere to go. You go by there in the day. Excuse me.
So if you add to your property here,
Mm-hmm.
and then, are you gonna redo your parking lot? Do you have to do that with
Well,
the city? Then
the
do you have to add
interesting,
the islands and all
okay,
that
the
stuff?
interesting thing is if you look at
Yep.
the picture on the left, that to the right there on the bottom, kind of it's, I'll just point to it. This area right here.
Mhm.
So, yeah, the area I just pointed out, I don't know who allowed it or what happened, but that was blacktopped originally when that building was put in there. Now, apparently they didn't own it, but it's blacktopped. So there's just a couple of tree roots between ours and theirs right now. So immediately our plan would be to clean up that, seal the whole parking lot as is and put the new striping. Our next phase then would be to go after the upper part and do some work in there. And do whatever, once you guys are doing the river walk and whatever you're doing there, then if it said somewhere, we might have to add a few shrubs or some fencing along that side. Then it's a really nice, come over the bridge and you see this nice, well well orchestrated looking building.
Just as a point of clarification, if they just seal coat the existing blacktop, they don't have to bring it up to current code for parking lots, but when they do an addition of new parking lot, that has to be built as up to current code.
And what would that entail?
Depending on the size, landscaping, the dimensions of the parking stalls and the aisles, as well as if you get too big, then stormwater runoff, you have to actually start controlling as well.
Right, so, we're not looking at a huge area there that we'd be adding to the parking. There'd be, some of that would be peripheral, but
Right.
like, that wouldn't be our, we really don't want to have to add, landscaping things is one thing, but, some kind of.
What constitutes the timing of when that becomes,
It's when
An
they
added
reach
parking
the,
lot.
right now under current code, once they disturb more than 20,000 square feet of that parking lot, then they have to bring it up to code.
Oh, well, we wouldn't even be doing that if we redid this whole 13,000.
Well, the greenery's already there. Well,
Yep, I'm not sure that we got a motion.
no, not yet.
No, this is
It's a
just a
public
public
hearing.
hearing.
Oh. I don't know why I'm always thrown off by that.
So I think it's a win-win. I mean, we've got owners, as I said in a letter to city staff, that thinks you should give it to us vehemently. Every city gives everything to everybody, and why aren't they giving it to us? And we got past that. And we got to what the city thought was the minimum bid, but we want to do it, but our appetite is not endless. And we think that's a fair price for what we'd be doing to beautify that area and help, make sure that the people that buy that around there are satisfied that it's just not a hunk of, bad building and land.
Does present an interesting proximity to the water. So any further thoughts or discussion? All right.
So, in other words, it's just a public hearing, there's no vote then?
That'll be the next item.
The next building, or the next
next-
meeting?
Nope, after we're done with the public
Oh, I'm
hearing,
sorry.
then they'll
Oh,
have.
I didn't understand, okay. I was
Do we have
just-
to close the public hearing?
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
You stay.
All right.
Yeah, appreciate it. You
Thanks,
can
Jim.
sit there.
thank you, Jim.
So seeing that we have no further folks here registered to speak on that or commenting, we should take this to a vote.
I'll make a motion to approve 20-15, authorized land disposition.
Second,
Discussion? Mr.
Uh,
Hintz?
Question for Mr. Davis. Does this create any problems with the development of the rest of the area down there?
No, what we tried to show in one of the
It's
attachments on the
right.
map is how this would relate to the Riverwalk as well as what would be developed on the balance of the property.
So
And
we're okay with that?
we think we have enough room for the Riverwalk and the linear park as well as enough developable land for the balance of the RDA property. Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
what can we do with, what was the question? Oh, what can we do with the money?
Right now, we'd be holding that money and planning to use that as some of the matching funds for the grant application we put in for the Riverwalk. So we're hoping to be able to use the $40,000 as part of the match for the DNR grant that we put in this spring and replace some city funds with these funds.
Does it make sense for the city to have any option on this for a right-of-way in any way in the future, in planning, or not?
I couldn't identify anything for right-of-way. Right now, 7th Avenue is right-of-way. Pioneer Drive,
Or easement of any kind, or,
no utilities or anything. We've got Pioneer, we'll retain
Okay.
Pioneer Drive and we'll retain 7th Avenue, so I don't think we need anything for this.
Great.
And that includes some of the concerns around Pioneer Drive in general?
Yes, I mean, the Riverwalk and the Linear Park, will be contained within the Pioneer Drive right away. That still leaves an extra 10 to 20 feet, south of the sidewalk.
Sure.
I haven't seen any plans that actually need this area. That's why I tried to include the map that showed the preliminary plans for the park and the Riverwalk, as well as this plan, so you can see how they fit together. That would, do we have that as a PowerPoint? Nope. It would be this map that's in your packet.
Yeah, it's in our packet.
Yep.
Okay.
That kind of also kind of cleans up those lot lines, right? Makes
Yes.
it a little more,
It squares them off a little
Congruous,
better?
yeah.
Yes, because right now the co-op has a kind of a jagged line for their property line. And this would follow where we think the limits of the park, the maximum limits of the park would ever be.
okay, please take the roll.
Thomas Belter,
Aye.
Jack Birmingham,
Aye.
Steve Hintz,
Aye.
Jason Lasky,
aye.
Lori Palmieri,
Aye.
Sue Panic,
Aye.
Archie Stam.
Aye.
All right, next is, community
Thank you so
garden.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good seeing you again.
Thanks for
Yeah,
coming.
hey, great work on that area. I've been there 20 years, and we've been the anchor of a blighted area, and it's really good to see it happening, so thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
So next is, community garden discussion.
Yes.
I believe Mr. Davis has some updates on that.
Yes, this is a follow-up from the last RDA meeting where we started talking about potentially using some of the RDA lots for community gardens. And staff assembled a list of RDA-owned properties that we think could serve as potential community garden locations. They are not the best residential lots because we want to hold those for people who actually want to build houses on them. So that was kind of the criteria. There's been little or no interest for the lots from potential buyers. No neighbors have expressed interest in buying them. None of our community partners like Habitat or the Housing Authority or GOH&I have expressed any interest. And the actual size or shape of the parcel makes it difficult to redevelop without combining. So these are the 5 that we think are the least likely to redevelop. I can't say they'd never redevelop, but they'd be least likely to, and I think that was one of the things that we're looking for with a community garden is longer term, because I know the RDA is in the business of getting properties redeveloped, but the community garden, if they're gonna invest all their time and sweat into a community garden, they don't wanna see that gone in 2 years or 5 years. They'd like to see that as semi-permanent as they can get. So that's why we've identified the parcels that we have not gotten any interest in over the last few years, and that's why we thought these 5 would be at least worth talking about for the RDA. And so we've got potential sites, some pictures as to what they are, as well as the expectation that you'd want us to put something on an agenda to reach out to community garden interested groups to see what their interest would be for these lots. I know one of them is very shady, and I don't know how well a community garden will go there unless you're growing a lot of hostas or ferns, so.
I know there was one group who had said that they might have an interest, I think it might have been Midtown, I can't recall, in, like an urban orchard type garden-esque thing or a perimeter, but that was, one of the things that was discussed about edible forest or something along those lines. I don't see like a list of the locations. I see the pictures, but it's not really clear, like, exactly where they are.
We could go over those real
Yeah.
quickly. This one is on South Oregon. This is the lot that was just south of Oaks Candy. So you can see the green space there. Oaks Candy's to the left. So that's on South Oregon.
Would we anticipate neighbor permission being required to do this?
Any neighbor?
Permission?
No. The RDA owns the property. You can have a garden on RDA property if we go through a conditional use permit. In theory, they could attend the plan commission and council meetings and speak against the proposed garden, but when it comes down to it, it would be the RDA and the council's approval. for
Could they
the-
lobby for condition in the conditional use permit?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Then I think that's fine.
Yes, Mr. Hintz?
Yes, I like the idea of community gardens, but I'm also very aware that there needs to be initiative to get one going, you know, from local neighbors. And of course, that was a real success of Middle Village, that you had a group of people, and you're awfully familiar with this, put in a lot of work there. How, and I know down on the south side, we've even had some difficulty in getting neighborhood associations going better than some other parts there. How would we go about even finding out if anybody's interested?
Well, I had actually been contacted by a couple of
Good.
neighborhood associations and some residents,
Uh-huh.
independent of neighborhood associations, about this very thing as early as when there was a young university student last year when we were talking about what to do with Lakeshore.
Uh-huh.
And their grand idea was to turn the entire Lakeshore Park into an urban agriculture
Yeah.
entity. So this is, I would say, going back, like I say, to early last year. And then since that time, there've been some sporadic either emails or phone calls about why don't we have a community garden program? And then Midtown had expressed some interest.
Mhm.
Menominee South, of course, had expressed interest in permanency. And like I said, several individuals who've called. So it just made sense for us to try and bring this forward. And now, since some of the supply chain with grocery items have been at times thin, there have been kind of a resurgence of interest, I guess, in anticipation of, potential fresh food shortages this fall.
Well, that's good news, that there are groups that are interested. 'Cause I just think that that's the absolute key.
Oh, certainly. And just
Yeah.
to share, La Crosse did a Victory Garden initiative this year. They expedited and put this on a fast track. They had a 20 garden decentralized plan, but they ended up starting with 4.
Uh-huh.
Based on the availability and the desire of volunteers to steward those. So,
That's great.
yes.
So if we approve the sites, then is the next step that we have to get somebody, in a sense, to sponsor it or take responsibility for it? Because the worst thing that we could do is have the gardens, somebody start planting, and then they just go, into disrepair because nobody's taking care of them. So would that be the next step?
That's what we did with Middle Village. Right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Middle Village has basically a year-to-year lease that we renew, and the conditional use permit is reviewed on an annual basis with the RDA. And as long as it continues operating and our RDA doesn't have another use for the property, that continues. I think that was one scenario, but I think the interest is that they don't want it to be a year-to-year or annual type of thing. They want it more long-term. That's the policy question in front of the RDA. At some point, there's gonna be somebody who says, yes, we'd like this for the next 10 or 20 years. And would the RDA be willing to put that kind of commitment in writing?
One of the more recent requests was because of the ending of the conditional use for Menominee South on Grove Street.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know if any of these locations would be of interest to them since they're being displaced. So this will be the second successful group in the city who has, in multiple years, stewarded community gardens and been asked to move on. And I mean, it's a good thing, right? We're gaining some habitat housing, but I don't even know if they would have an interest in any of these locations as an alternative to where they are, because it doesn't appear to be.
They're not in their neighborhood.
Right.
I personally have no problem with any of these properties. I think that it's a great idea, and I think there's little risk to the RDA to make these properties all available based on the city, how you viewed it and kind of brought these to our attention, to make them available to go to RFP, right? And see if there's a organization of interest that would like to put something together. And then there's a pretty substantial process that it's got to go through. And so that's kind of its own thing. So from that standpoint, I would have no problem. Like I said, I think there's little risk, and I don't think all 5 of them are going to go in the next 6 months or anything. So if there's time, and you can be thoughtful about it. So I think it'd be a great idea.
And in the La Crosse version, what they did, they coupled things with city lots, some private churchyards, some school areas, and from what I understand, I believe Growing Oshkosh is refocused to only the schools. Then they've abandoned their larger kind of urban farm, as I understand it, at the
One by
Hooper Building.
Yeah, by the Hooper Building, that's what I've heard. as well.
So, you know, it doesn't specifically have to only be city-owned lots. It was just, that was a thought that, you know, if there were some that were not likely to have development, if there could be that offering, I guess. If a group comes and says, hey, we want one, I don't know how much recruiting there would be. It would be maybe more of a, these are some possibilities for those who are interested in pursuing it. But when you say RFP, so are you envisioning like because it may not necessarily be a formalized neighborhood.
I'm just using the term, but I think that regardless, I mean, for it to go through the process, I think there has to be a plan. And so it would have to start someplace with somebody submitting a plan for something. And so formal or informal, however that needs to start, I think that would be the responsibility of the organization that would have interest. So our responsibility just saying, sure, go ahead, and we'd be happy to consider anything in any number of these properties. Like I said, little risk, so.
You also mentioned policy for the time frame. Does it need to be a policy, or can it be case by case? Because I think each property probably has its own story with, yeah, you know, and
I think that's completely up to the RDA as well.
And for example, in Milwaukee, when I was working with some of the vacant lots there, they had a program in which after X number of years of successful stewardship, they could apply, that group could apply for the permanent piece of that. And so I that seemed to have worked there, because then, you know, you can make that determination. I mean, Middle Village is, you know, we've had successful years and not successful years. Last year, our growing season wasn't really great. This year, it's phenomenal. It's doing really well. As a matter of fact, we're trying to manage and make sure all those little weeds that are coming up between the stones are not taking over. By the way, Darlene, my salt and vinegar thing's not working. So we gotta find another remedy for that. But, so yeah, there are a number of ways, and I think if there was a community garden, I guess, plan, you know, at the city level, when someone inquires, at least we would have that as an offering. And for those who already have requested it, we can go back to them and say, okay, here's what we have to offer, are these of interest, right? Does that sound what you were thinking?
Yes, and the RDA has complete flexibility. Sometimes they've taken offers from one group that said they wanted to do this, and then we just assign it to that group. If you wanna open it up to anybody, we could issue an RFP, and then in theory, multiple people could apply for the same lot, and then you'd have to decide which one gets it based on their proposal. So the RFP probably sounds the fairest way to give everybody a fair shot to acquire the rights to community garden for any group that would want to present themselves. Long-term, if the RDA would want to convey it, we'd have to convey it to some entity, and that's one thing. Most neighborhood associations aren't set up today to be that entity, but they'd have to figure out a way to make that happen.
But that could be any nonprofit, right?
Yes, any nonprofit could be created to hold title to that.
Right. It sounds
Very
like,
good.
well, we don't have this as a voting item, it's not a resolution, so,
No, but we could bring, maybe the RFP idea and, thoughts as to the next steps and how this would be done for a plan going forward at the next meeting. Cause the general consensus here is that, yes, you wanna see something like that happen. And maybe at that point, we'd be voting on an actual plan. And I'd probably give me a little more time to figure out how we do that.
certainly.
So the RFP would include terms then, like a 5-year term or something, some kind of sunset, or come back to the
I don't
the
think it
RDA
necessarily,
or
I think it would be
something?
up to the applicant
Yeah,
to
we-
kind of determine what they'd want to propose,
Yep.
and then for that to be discussed and
Okay.
weighed, and if negotiated, then negotiated.
Because quite frankly, I mean, like, you know, there are years where we're kind of scratching our heads on who's doing what, you know, it changes. We've, you know, had some families move in and some move out, and so it rotates as to who does what. And I believe some of the other cities that have done this have actually put this out, like you said, with RFP, and in Milwaukee, I think it was called Milwaukee Urban Gardens, and they might have changed over to another nonprofit eventually, and they kind of administered it, and perhaps acted almost like a GO-HI kind of middle
That's neat.
entity.
But the general sense of the room is that, yes, you'd like us to pursue that, so staff will continue working on that and bring you the next step at the next meeting.
Thank you.
And then, from my executive director's report, a lot of things going on. Probably the most important thing that we're continuing to monitor is the arena. We're hoping that arena process gets wrapped up later this summer, and that we can convey the property as soon as possible. Let's see, the Rock the Block program, I thought it was in danger of not happening this year. They still are planning on picking several dates here in July and August to work on Rock the Block in the Congress Field Neighborhood Association.
I thought they already started, they had some,
Yes, they did. A few dates here in July and a few more dates in August. They're trying to meet all the distancing requirements and not congregating too many people together, so I think it's, rather than getting done in 2 or 3 days in a short stretch, it's gonna be stretched out much longer. But that is still continuing. You've probably seen the South Shore demolition is basically complete. We're working on the RFP to be issued later this year. There's only a few things that still need to be tied up there, and then we'll be able to issue that. Let's see, I'm not sure there's anything else to highlight. The draft CIP includes a lot of projects that we're looking to complete in the South Shore. Pioneer Drive, Riverwalk, 9th Avenue, the Riverwalk around Pioneer Island and down Pioneer Drive, east of the railroad tracks. They're all in the capital improvement program. And so we're optimistic those will still come to pass in the very near future. Merge pulled their building permit for the food co-op building. They call that the Brio building. So that should be starting here in July. And staff is working on getting the Rainbow Memorial Park trail designed and submitted to DOT later this fall, so construction can happen in '21 as scheduled. And I believe you have asked me in the past, Lakeshore Trail is getting really close to being completed, and there are plenty of people who use it, even though it's not officially open. The barricades are still up, but just a few punch list items left to do, and we're hoping to have a ribbon cutting still here in July or early August.
Alan, I have a question about opportunity zones. Is that program gonna be expanding? Is there any information available to know if that's actually coming down the pipe?
There's been talk about that at the federal level to expand it or extend it, but I can't tell you what the federal government's gonna do about that. I can tell you that WEDC's been very good at adding more, say, carrots into opportunity zones, so I think that's attracted even more interest, cause you can do multiple CDI grants in the opportunity zones, and they put more dollars available in opportunity zones. So if the federal government extends it, I think we'll be in a really good position to help take advantage of that.
Would the city have more properties to add if the program expanded?
Absolutely. I mean, we proposed everything in the downtown area, and they only took 2 of our census tracts.
Got it,
We
okay.
still had another one that we thought was just as worthy. They're along on the south side of the river. I would love to see that one included, because there's a lot of projects that really, or properties that would benefit from opportunity zone
Thank you.
designation. That's all I have at this point.
Great, okay, well, at this point, do a motion to go into closed session.
Well, I'll make the motion to go into closed session to convene, to discuss the purchase of 668 North Main, 518 Merritt Street pursuant to section 19.85, para 1, para E of Wisconsin State statutes, where competitive bargaining reasons require a closed session.
Second?
Thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Do you have to-